Right, thank you. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Right, thanks a lot. First, I want to check there's a clock. Yes, there is. There we are. Now, I went through that list there. On the sleep point, I'm afraid I did really badly last night. I've been doing Good Morning Britain this week, and there are two things, which means you have to get out of bed about 10 to 4, and there are two things that always disturb my sleep. One is, even if I'm not emotionally invested, if I watch a football match, I can't sleep afterwards because it just sort of goes around my head. And if I have to wake up really early, I can't sleep. Those two met in the middle last night. So just as I was getting to sleep with the football, I was starting to wake up because I was worried about missing the alarm. So I'm very, very tired. Added to which, anybody who's watched Good Morning Britain in the last couple of days, it's been hard. I'm a Burnley fan, right? I'm a massive Burnley fan, but I'm also a massive Scotland fan. And it's just been a bit hard to get totally with the programme. So that this morning, I sort of did it, but they made me wear these to present the programme, right? So what I'd say is when we get to the Q&A, I'll sign them both. So they will go to the two best questions later on, okay? So decide if you want to be Harry or you want to be Gareth. I think actually having heard Rob there talk about his scale, maybe I should talk about my scale. You see, the thing I've learned through I'm 64 now, I think I've probably always had depression at times in my life, okay? I'm not always depressed. I'm normally incredibly well motivated, very happy, love my family, do loads of things, and I'm fine. But when I get depressed, I'm really, really, really bad. I'm on the floor, I can't get out of bed and all that stuff. And I've probably always had that in my life, just coming and going, never fully understood why. And in the past, back in the 70s and 80s in particular, I think I used to cover it with drink. Now, I was diagnosed as having a drink problem because I was hospitalised after a psychotic attack in 1986, okay? And I stopped drinking for 13 years. And I thought, well, I've done the hard bit, it's not drinking when you've been drinking, industrial amounts of alcohol for quite a few years. That's hard, and you do that, and you think, well, I've stopped, I'm fine. But that's why do the depressions keep coming? And then you sort of, you go and do quite difficult, challenging, high-pressure jobs, whether that's in journalism or that's in politics, and then in government, working where Peter is now. And, the thing is, you find, I'm not saying this is healthy, it's not healthy, but you find something, if you've got a bit of resilience, you find the stuff inside you, you just kind of keep going. And what happened to me is that having kept going for as long as I did, when I stopped in 2003, not long after that, I had one of the worst and longest depressive episodes of my life. And I no longer had all this other stuff around me, going to work, going to America, going to see Clinton or Bush or Mandela, or, all that stuff it keeps you going, it motivates you, you've always got something there, and suddenly it's gone. And I had the biggest crash of my life. And what happened was I started to, I think you'd have to define it as self-harm. Now, alcohol is a form of self-harm if you take it to abuse. Drugs, self-harm, gambling, self-harm, sex addiction, all the well-known addictions. But I'll tell you what I was doing. I was beating myself up physically. And when I realised that this was happening, this was just way out of control, was when I was out for a walk on Hampstead Heath with Fiona, my partner, who's been with me for 42 years now. I think you've all got the book, haven't you? Read her chapter, and women who think you've got trouble with blokes, just honestly, she's been through quite a lot with me. And the thing is that I started punching myself in the face, and I was punching myself to knock myself out. That is self-harm. As I was doing it, I was saying inside my head, you can't do this on your own. Suddenly that penny dropped. I've always seen myself as very strong, very independent. I stopped drinking on my own. I didn't go to AA. I wouldn't take medication and all that. And suddenly I realised at age whatever I was in 2005, I can't do this anymore. And the book, which I think you're all getting, which is it's called How I Learned to Survive Depression. It's really about all the stuff I've done since then, with talking to other people, with campaigning with people like Jeff that you mentioned, with getting involved with the charities, but above all, with researching it, going out. And what I've done is all the stuff I've done with my psychiatrist and all the other stuff I've researched, I've just put it in there, put it in the book, because I think that, you know, hopefully you won't ever have a psychotic attack, right? Hopefully you won't necessarily, but I saw there was somebody too there, right? As soon as I saw that, the red, I thought that's somebody who's struggling. You know, if you're defining yourself as 2 out of 10 in your mood, you know, that's not good. And I'm with Rob, if you want to have a chat about it afterwards, come up. So when you're when you've powered your way through as much as I powered my way through, and then you suddenly realise you can't do it, you really have to address that. And it's like anything in life. You don't address a problem until you recognise the problem. And the thing about alcohol and drug abuse in particular, they are ways of allowing you never to recognise the problem, because you're doing something, you're self-medicating effectively to try to get through that. And so I've now got to to a place where I call the subtitle of the book How I Learned to Survive Depression, as opposed to, you know, cure it, never have it. I will have it. I had a very bad episode just a few weeks ago. Didn't last as long as they normally do. Why? Because I've now got much better tools to deal with it. And of course, we're all very different. We're all individuals. We've all got our own way of dealing with things. But so it's quite interesting. Our scales are kind of, he probably thinks I'm back to front and I think he's back to front. I'll explain what I mean by that. I give myself a mark out of 10 every morning when I wake up. It's the first thing I do now. It's an instinctive thing. And it's not a deep thing. I'm not sort of thinking about it. It's just an instinct, right? How are you feeling? And 1, for me, is out of control mania. When I'm at 1, it's dangerous. When I'm at 2, it's dangerous because I'm getting close to 1. 1, when I'm at 1, it basically means Donald Trump never became president. Boris Johnson is still a columnist on the Daily Telegraph. Burnley won the Champions League last year, and Scotland are now preparing for the final of the European Championship, probably against North Macedonia, okay? That's 1. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And the reason I don't allow it to happen is because 10 in my scale is suicide. So I don't want to make this sound dramatic, but we're all on that scale somewhere. We're all there somewhere. And if you just understand that suicide today is the biggest killer of young men in this country, right? If that was anything else, if you deleted suicide and said asthma or diabetes or lung cancer, whatever it might be, right? We just wouldn't have that. We wouldn't live with that. But suicide is the biggest killer of young men. Now, I've been at 9. I've been at 9 when I've wanted to kill myself. I've been at 9 when I've thought about how I'm going to do it, okay? Never done it, thank God. I've written in the book about members of my family who have, and I get it. I get it. You know, when you hear that thing, somebody kills themselves and people say, you're so selfish. How can they do that and leave their children behind and leave their, you know, had a wife. And, you know, what didn't you think about the wife? I know from when I'm at 9, that is all you're thinking about. You are so ill in your head, you think you would be doing the right thing for them if you took yourself out of their life. That is what goes on inside a mind that's just kind of gone off the edge. And over here, on this side, and this is where I think it's hard for my partner, Fiona in particular, when I'm over here, I'm a nightmare to live with. Because I literally believe I can stop Brexit. I literally believe I can, you know, change the world, walk on the water, all that stuff. You're mad when you're doing that, right? Well, it's not mad to want to stop Brexit, by the way, but, you know, we can, but I fear it's sort of done. So my scale is about having the awareness then, with all the other work I've done, to give myself the tools to help myself get into the position on the scale that I want to be. Where it helps is when, for example, if I want to be 3 and 4, that's where I like to be. 3 and 4, I'm fit, I'm healthy, got loads of things to do, life's good. Once I'm at 5 and 6, I'm starting to spiral. So once I'm at 6 and 7, I've got to give myself these tools to kind of just get myself back up. And some of them are really small. If I don't feel like it, you mentioned exercise. If I exercise every day, I'm an absolute fitness fanatic, I never used to be. And now, if I'm really down there, and I would normally say be going out on the bike for 3 hours, I'll say, well, I can't face doing that. I'll walk up and down the stairs 5 times. I'll walk up and down the stairs 5 times. When I've done that, I'll think, well, I'll go out and I'll try and walk to that tree at the bottom of the road. Get to that tree. It's a nice day, I'll get to the heath, get on the heath. And you know, if I can do that step by step, eventually I might go for a run. So you're doing those little, and these are just little tactics that have helped me in the past, and so now I can use them into the future. I've got this blind on the landing outside our bedroom, and I just noticed that whenever I was depressed, I never opened it. Now, it's not a big thing, but now, whenever I'm starting that dip, I just get out there, and the first thing I do now is I open that blind, and it just sort of says to me, you've opened the blind. If you've opened the blind, you can shave. Most men, I don't know if you do this, but most men, when they get on that dive, they stop shaving. They stop changing their clothes. They stop brushing their teeth. All that stuff just kind of goes. So making yourself do that can get you that one little notch up. And the big thing that I do is, I need a little prop for this. And this came to me from a woman that I went to see for a TV program about depression. And in a way, you see, I think government has to do a lot of mental health. Businesses, employers, incredibly important. How we look after staff, how we look after each other in the workplace, incredibly important. But what we do for ourselves. And I met this woman in Canada when I was doing this documentary for the BBC about depression. And she was actually a geneticist. And so we were talking about, you know, is it genetic? Is it because of your dad? Is it because of your mum? All that stuff. And the short answer, by the way, is no. It's more complicated than that. But during the conversation, she told me that she was a depressive as well. And I said, well, how do you deal with your depression? She said, well, I've got a jam jar. I said, well, what does your jam jar do? She said, well, and she got her jam jar out. This is a glass, but I'll pretend it's a jam jar. She said, what I do basically is this. Down at the bottom of the jam jar, anybody who's ever made jam at home knows this, there's always a sediment. That's your genes. Nothing you can do about that. It's going to be there forever. Then the jar fills up with your life. Good experiences, bad experiences, nice memories, horrible memories. And we've all had billions of experiences, all of us, right? What stays in there, we're managing it. Most of the time, most people are managing it okay. 6.9 out of 10, that's kind of okay. So we're managing. When we stop managing it, she said, the jam jar explodes and we get ill. And instead of digging in here the whole time, you know, did you have very strange thoughts about your mother? Or in here, what were you doing last Tuesday night and how did that make you feel on the couch, right? You can do that and it's all very good, but she said far better if you can grow the jam jar and put more life into it. And I sort of sat there thinking, what the fuck is she talking about? I woke up in the middle of the night a few nights later and I just went, oh, I get it. And I haven't got it here, but it's the sort of drawing of it in the book. And I got up and I went downstairs to the kitchen table and I drew my jam jar. And it's so interesting how it, when I saw your list, so my jam jar goes like this. Genes, life. FFF means Fiona, family, friends. You talked about relationships. If the key relationships in your life are kind of okay, that is the single most important component of your jam jar, in my view. And I speak as a workaholic, okay? My next one is MA, meaningful activity. Meaningful activity to me means two things. It means work to make a living, but it also means things that you do to try and change the world. That is important to me. It's not important to everybody, but it's important to most of us. We all need that sense of purpose, and that's where I get meaningful activity. Then I'm into what I call my fundamentals. And again, you mentioned them. Sleep, diet, exercise. Now, I didn't get any sleep last night, so I know I've got a lunch today. I know I've got to go home this afternoon, and I might go for a swim, but then I know I'm going to have to sleep, because otherwise, if I don't, I know I'm going to get wired. And I'm on Good Morning Britain again tomorrow, and I don't want to get over to 1. So I'm going to keep myself here by resting, and by making sure I don't drink, and by eating something really healthy tonight. So these are like really simple things that we can all do, and they don't cost much. And then the next thing I go into are what are the things that are really, really personal to me. We all have stuff that matters to us. So I mentioned Burnley. Please don't laugh, but Burnley Football Club is a big part of my jam jar. My bagpipes, which I played on Good Morning Britain yesterday, they're a big part of my jam jar. I played the Italian national anthem, by the way. My dog is a massive part of that jam jar. And if my dog died, just like the last one did, I've got to get another one to get that back in the jam jar. My bike is in the jam jar. And then you go into the thematic stuff. For me, curiosity and creativity. They're my themes, right? Curiosity, never go to bed without knowing something you didn't know when you woke up. just a little rule that I have in my life. And I sometimes get to bed and thought, oh God, I've learned nothing today. I know what I'll do. I'll go upstairs on the laptop and I'll learn something. I'll go and find something new. And creativity, I have to write every day. That might be writing a blog, it might be writing a book, it doesn't matter, but I have to do that. And what's interesting about that, and there's loads of other stuff, right? When I get to the top, suddenly when I got to the top, I put down medication and David. He's my psychiatrist. Now, if you'd have said to me the day before Janine gave me my jam jar, how do you deal with your depression? I'd have said, oh, medication, and I've got a psychiatrist. So it's just a totally different way now that I deal with it. And since I wrote the book and wrote about the jam jar, I've had Health Service Trust come to me and say, well, to come and do a talk to our staff, we're going to have an organisational jam jar. And they now have it for themselves as individuals, but also what are we as an organisation? What matters to us? And I did an event with the Bank of Ireland recently, banks, right, big bad banks. Their top priority now, which is set there in black and white in their strategy, is the mental health and well-being of our staff. Because they've worked out, if they don't do that, if they don't look after the mental health and well-being of their staff, they're going to have happen to them what happened to all the banks during the global financial crisis. They had them literally falling out of the building. And that costs a lot of money, and there's a lot of pain attached to it. And so they thought, we're not doing that again. And they've really started to take it seriously. And the banks actually in the financial sector, they're showing real leadership. That's why Jeff, your friend, came out of Unilever, big business. He saw what was going on there to himself, to others, came out, I'm going to change the world. And I think that's what we all have to try and do in our own way. I said I was going to look at the clock, but I've now actually realised, how are we doing for time, Anna? Are we okay? What? What, are you telling me to do the Q&A now? What about if I don't want to? What about if I'm in full flow and I've just started? Okay, I'll do that. Right, so... Yeah, thank you. Bloody hell. I'm the control freak, right, not you. So there we are. That's a sort of, off the cuff, here we go, round about the block way of saying, I guess, yes, people like us, we campaign on this, we try to get change. I think we have made massive progress, but we've got so much further to go. And government's part of it, business is part of it, but also I just say to everybody, we can all be part of making that change. And the single most important thing we can do is to have the insight. We've all got physical health, and none of us ever have perfect health all the time. We've all had to see a doctor. We all get colds. Some of you will have COVID. You've had COVID. We get ill, okay? We all have physical health, and we all have mental health as well. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes you can go in there and you can say you're 9 and 10 on Rob's scale, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes it goes down there and you're actually ill and you need help. And the more that we can just admit that is no different to having a sore knee and want to fix it, having a sore back and want to fix it. So that's what we need to get to. If we get that, we can get genuine parity between physical and mental health. We'll become better people, happier people, better country, better world. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Oh, Alastair, you don't disappear, please.
I'm not, I'm getting some water.
Right, I have no doubt that we've got some questions for Alastair. So, here we are. Well, Rob's got one straight away.
Thank you. Alastair, we're obviously passionate about trying to inspire openness about mental ill health in the workplace. I've heard you talk about this before, but people at the sort of more junior end of their career might think, well, it's okay for the CEO to be talking about their challenges, but is this going to affect my career? And linked to that self-awareness that we build up when we go through a mental health challenge, what would you say to somebody that's a bit nervous about being open in the workplace in terms of their career prospects?
Well, I would say I completely understand the nervousness because of we aren't where we need to be. And because we all know there are employers that if you go for an interview and say, oh, by the way, I probably should tell you that I probably have more time off work than most people because I get da-da-da, that's going to be held against you. So that's going to tell you don't be open. But what I say is that, and it's maybe easier for me because I don't want a job and I've got a nice life and all that, but I have never, ever regretted being open. And I think if I hadn't been, I think that would have damaged me a lot, both professionally and personally. And also the other thing I'd say, we had on the programme yesterday, Dan Carden, the Labour MP, who did a big speech in Parliament last week, coming out as an alcoholic, having previously come out as being gay, and thinks that his alcoholism was in a sense fueled by years spent trying to cover that up or, deny it. And he said this thing, he said that, whatever damage you think you do by being open, you're doing far more damage by not being open. So that's all I can say, really, but I understand the nervousness because we're not where we need to be.
Before we go to the next question, don't forget, they've got to be really good questions, people. They're going to get signed. Right, who's got their hand up? Gosh, right across the room. At the back, and then we'll go to this one there. Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, thanks, Alastair, for a great talk. You say that you should get help. I have a goddaughter whose brother killed himself, and she's tried to kill herself a number of times. And I know from, I'm very close friends, obviously, with the family, there is no help. So, and as an employer as well, how do I square this? How do I make sense of this? What help should employers be thinking of offering? I mean, there's understanding that people might have mental health challenges. I get that. But where is the real health? And that's not a sort of political point, but where can you get help if people need help?
Well, listen, it is actually quite a political question because the services are not what they need to be. I'll try not to be too political about this. When we were in government, I think we improved them, but we didn't make them perfect. I do think they've gone backwards, and I think that's a real problem. But for example, you talk about, where's the help? If I'd have known you before, and you knew that you had somebody close to you who was struggling, that you may not have done. Often you don't know that people are struggling, but if you did know that, I know places where you can go for suicide sanctuary. I know places. Now, they don't get big publicity. They don't do that well on the fundraising front because it's back to the taboo. People don't like talking about suicide. But I could, with a bit of luck and a bit of pressure and a bit of elbowing, could probably have got you into a place where at least to look after you through the worst of the crisis. And likewise, I think with a lot of the services, let's just accept, so the services aren't perfect, but an awful lot of people who are struggling psychologically, it's not always a service that they want. It is often just somebody, and it may not even be a medic. This is why I think it's so important that we all educate ourselves in how we talk to people. I did a thing on BBC Scotland last night of a guy at the BBC, a security guard at the BBC. He looked out the window and he saw a woman behaving strangely, okay? And he's trained in mental health first aid. So it triggered in him, I think she's struggling with her mental health. He went out and he talked to her. By the time he got down there, she was on the edge of the Clyde. She was about to jump off it wasn't a bridge, but she was on, she would have killed herself. She'd thrown her phone in the water. I think she'd thrown some of her possessions in the water. And he just went and talked to her about anything. Now, as it happened, he talked about, this and that. He didn't go and say, you're trying to kill yourself, can I try and pull you back? He just went up, and I'll tell you the single best question. When I got arrested when I was psychotic, I'll never ever forget this because I think these guys saved my life. A policeman who arrested me, I didn't know he was a policeman because he was plain clothes. He came up to me and he was very calm, he was very measured, I didn't feel that he was aggressive. And he just said to me, you okay? Fairly neutral voice, friendly, warm, you okay? And I looked at him and I just said, I'm not. And that was the first time I'd ever said that. So I think a lot of it is about, I guarantee you, I had a cousin who took his own life. And honestly, I know he would have thought about the people that he was leaving behind, but I also know that he felt he couldn't talk to any of them because he was ashamed of how he felt. He was ashamed of his drinking, he was ashamed of his moods, he was ashamed of the fact that he knew that they couldn't stand living with him anymore. So he couldn't stand living with himself. If he'd have been able to talk about that, that's the help we need, is to be able to talk about it.
Thank you. Okay, I do think we had a question in the
Yeah.
corner. Was that right? Yeah. And we've got two.
I think, do you want to be Gareth or Harry? Yeah, you got to be Gareth. Yeah. What's your name?
Hi, classmate. Lovely. Thank you so much for that. That really was inspiring. And I love the analogy of the jam jar, and I'm absolutely going to be reading your book. What I'm most interested in is how much of it is self-aware when your jam jar is coming down a few, and how much is it of Fiona and your close friends. How much of it is them saying to you, actually, Alastair, I think you're starting to go on the turn, or you're...
Yeah. Today, now, much more of the latter. But for most of my life, I would have ignored it anyway. And that is the problem. You know, I've seen this with my son. I write in the book about my own son, Callum, who's a recovering alcoholic. I mean, I'd been through the same thing. And yet when he went through it, I was making all the mistakes that people used to make with me. Don't fucking drink. Why do you have to go to the pub? Have you been stealing money again? All the stuff that people used to say to me, I was saying to him. And so that's why I think sometimes you do need that sort of separation from the closeness of that, because you get so frustrated and angry. You do get angry. But what I do now, which I never used to do, the minute I feel the depression coming on, I tell Fiona. If the kids are there, I tell the kids. We've worked out how to deal with that. Where Fiona's incredibly important is when I'm at the one end. And I had this thing where, I know please, I'm not insane, right? But I can do this thing where I can sing to the tune of Flower of Scotland, right? I can describe any situation that I'm in at any time. I could do it if I had, I could do it now if you really wanted me to.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Oh, flower of London, just by the Thames, with all my friends, we're talking about how we live without mental health and how to help us. You see, I can do that forever. When I start doing that, as I wake up, as I brush my teeth, as I walk down the stairs, as I go to the kitchen, Fiona is on high alert. And she stops me doing crazy stuff. If you check it out, I don't know if it's still up there. I think I might have deleted all the tweets, but no, I think I left them up there just to show people. During the lockdown, I had a really manic spell. And I was doing Flower of Scotland, and then I did the Russian national anthem, and then I'll tell you what I got. Then I did the French national anthem, then I was doing all this stuff, right? This is creativity. And I ended up, I went home, we'd been out for walking the dog, and Fiona kept saying, Alistair, you need to calm down a bit. I went up to my office at the top of the house, and I thought, do you know what? I haven't done God Save the Queen. And it was right at the height of the Cummings thing, okay? So I thought, right, I'm doing God Save the Queen. I need to get a picture of the Queen on the wall, like Matt Hancock used to have. So I got this picture of the Queen, I put it on the wall, and then I thought, do you know what? I think I'll put on my brother's Scots Guards uniform. I'll get his medals. So I dress up in my brother was in the army. He was mentally ill. He was invalided out with schizophrenia. But I got his medals on. So I'm wearing his medals. You don't wear other soldiers' medals. You just don't. And I filmed myself and I put on social media this thing where I go, I'm Boris Johnson. God save our gracious Dom. Long live our noble Dom. God save our Dom. Send him to face the press. Like Andrew at Pizza Express, that will clear up the mess. God save our Dom. Okay? I posted it. Within 5 minutes, the defence minister attacking me on social media, a friend at Help for Heroes phoning me and saying, we're going to have to condemn this. Here's where you need friends. A friend of mine who I used to work with in Number 10, called Martin Sheehan, speak to him every few months. He's a big Tottenham fan, actually. And the phone went, I saw it was Martin, there's me still kind of, hey Martin, yeah, what are you doing? And he says, you all right, Gaffer? He always calls me Gaffer. I said, yeah. He says, do us a favour, switch your phone off for a couple of days. And I did. That was the moment. I thought, so that's him recognising, watching social media, I'm over here. Now, he only knows that because he knows that's what I'm like. So Fiona knows when I get like that, she will take my phone off me. I might rage and rail, but I know she's right. So that's the way it works. It's a kind of, but it's taken us, the reason I wrote the book, and I hope people younger than me will read it, it's taken us 40 years to get to that. That's a lot of wasted time.
Thank you. I'm afraid
we
are out of time. I'm so
Well, we
so
should
sorry.
vote about who gets Harry then, shouldn't we? What was the best question? Rob, you can't have one. What do you think was the best question? Yeah? What's your name? Penny. You get Harry. Is that all right? Is that Penny gets Harry.
Brilliant. Okay, look, I'm going to wrap it up.
You have to wear it for the rest of the week. Okay.
Wonderful. Alastair,
Pleasure.
huge thanks for such an engaging speech. Very personal, very revealing. I know you're talking about this a lot at the moment, and it is so pertinent to what we're all going through at the moment. So thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.